Hey, after recording that video last week, I thought I'd do a second one because it occurred to me another angle of this question of how do we navigate after a Mace Energy Foundation session process. Because and again inspired by clients who come with these questions and say, well, I've noticed this, and both the great stuff and the stuff that they're continuing to find challenging, and or stuff that's become evident that's challenging, that's been hidden by the bigger identities in the past. So thank you to those who come and have these conversations with me because it really helps inspire me to come and then share these things more broadly with you guys on this video. So the thing that I wanted to talk about today in terms of navigating life is the volume of capacity and the ability to respond, the spaciousness and ability to respond rather than react, and how different that can be on the back of the MACE process. So you might have even heard some things said in the past. There was a thing in leadership development about um, something about our power lies in that gap between receiving information and responding. And that's the space in which we get to choose. You know, people would say you get to choose your thoughts. You get to choose whether you react or respond. And at one time, actually, in the earlier days of my development, I'd have said, yes, yes, that's totally true. I'm completely in control of this whole experience. And I absolutely get to choose my thinking. I get to choose whether I react or respond. But back then, it was done with a lot of effort. It was done with a need to control. I need to control all these thoughts and all of what I'm going to say or do in order that I do and say the right thing. And it led to a very contracted experience. It led to a very closed and tense experience. And in fact, it led to a lot of reaction at home with my family because what I did was I was able to do that. I'm very conscious and I'm choosing all the positive stuff and I'm choosing to respond, did all of that in work. But I was spending so much energy and effort trying to do all of that right in work that then by the time I got home, it was like, ugh, all the reactions would come out that had almost been stored up during the day. And so what I've seen with Mace is very different from that version of choosing your thoughts and kind of maximizing that gap between getting information and what you do or say in response to that. Because what I've found now is that it feels very easeful. If you watch that last video, you'll know that this feeling is the information that's relevant. This is what matters. So now, on the surface, it might seem like the same behavior, but it feels so different because it feels very easeful. It feels very quiet. It feels very responsive, response able, responsible. It's like now, not all the time, but on occasion, where there's a situation that happens, or somebody says something, somebody does something, or I do something, and or even just a thought pops in, even just a negative thought pops in, because all of those situations could have created some negativity, could have created the thought, well, this is wrong, this shouldn't be happening. Why have they done it like that? All those old thoughts that perhaps I know maybe you also used to latch onto and go down rabbit holes with. Now those experiences can happen, the thoughts can come in, but now there's kind of this pause, micro, but like a moment of space where there's capacity for me to choose. Again, not from that contracted, controlling place like I used to be in years back, but from a much more spacious, open space where, in the presence of that negative thought, negative idea, negative reactive response I could give, there's a pause and there's an opportunity to choose differently. This client put it so brilliantly when she said, it's like I come to a fork in the road and I've got the choice to either follow the old way and go down that old rabbit hole and end up in loads of negativity and that spiral downwards. For those who've been in my world for a while, we'd call it a whirlpool. Or I can choose this path, which is a much nicer feeling thought, which I know will lead to a much better outcome for me and for them. And so I choose this one. And it's funny to kind of slow it down in that way, because in the moment, although there is space, it is really like just a moment of space. But there's enough spaciousness there, and you're in charge of yourself enough that you can go, yeah, I don't want that one anymore. I'm going to go with this one. Because what's happened is the charge that was attached to that thought in the past has gone. That's what reveals the spaciousness. That's what reveals the capacity to choose differently. So, in the presence of this fork in the road, whereas before the reactive resistant stuff would have come up so fast and you'd have been down that rabbit hole in an instant. There's now more space and more capacity to say, no, actually, I think I'm going to go with this one. This feels a lot nicer. This feels much more like the real me. So I'm going to go this route, and much better things then flow from that. So that's another amazing way of navigating and indicator of both where you have clarity now, where the reaction has been cleaned out through the MACE process and you're able to respond in a helpful, healthy, adult, choosing way. And you may have situations where you still feel like there's a charge with something and you're going blah, 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 and you're down that rabbit hole before you know it. So this is the opportunity to continue having Mace Energy Method sessions. I have taken many things to subsequent sessions after my foundation process. I love it. I love being able to keep cleaning up and not following a reactive path. And in fact, reactive for me now, when things come up, that much more often it's going to be a doubtful, uncertain experience. Just connecting back to what I said in the last video, it's not always a frustrated, oh my God, I can't believe it. Although I did have one of those this week, in fact. Mine also show up often as uncertainty and doubt. Yours will be unique to you. You check in with you. You'll know. You'll know what your consistent this route things are like. You'll know what these feel like. You've practiced them many, many times over the years. The key is that you don't have to keep living with that stuff. And the more you bring those things to Mace Energy Method sessions, the more you're in this response route. The more, in fact, I think over time, these ones will die off. You know, people talk about neural pathways. Now, I have no evidence of a brain, even never mind neural pathways. But what I do see is that, yes, the more we give attention to something, the more of that we get. So I can see that as we come to these forks in the road, and if we continue to keep choosing these responsive routes, then it's going to be more of that. And these will just get covered over with dust and be forgotten. And it's MACE that enables that capacity to have that choice, to say, I choose this. Not from that controlling, restricted place where I used to do it from. I've got to do this to get it right, to be a good girl. Now, just from yeah, this one just makes more sense. This one just feels better. This one feels good. And that's the choice that opens up. So notice where you've maybe already been experiencing that, having had your foundation sessions, and notice places where perhaps it still feels a bit compelling to go down this reactive route, to go down the negative route. That's where you can come and have more sessions. I'd love to help you with that and keep helping you be more and more of the real you. Lots of love. Take care.